The starship Meridian moved slowly through the black emptiness of space. Inside the ship, Commander Jack Torres stood near the large window on the observation deck. He watched a distant planet grow bigger as they got closer. The planet was called Prime, and it was colored in shades of green and blue. It looked peaceful from this distance, but Jack knew that peaceful looks could hide dangerous truths. He held a small computer tablet in his hands. On the screen were pictures and information about the species. Jack had seen many alien races in his 20 years of service with the Galactic Coalition forces. He had fought some of them. He had become friends with others, but they were different from anything he had encountered before. The pictures showed creatures that stood 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in scales that were black like the night sky. They had 4 arms, and each arm ended in claws that could cut through metal. Their teeth were long and sharp, designed by nature to tear through the toughest prey. Their eyes were yellow and seemed to glow with intelligence and hunger. They were apex predators. This meant they sat at the very top of the food chain. No creature hunted them. They hunted everything else. In the last 100 years, they had conquered 17 star systems. Their warships were so powerful that they could break moons apart. Every species in the galaxy feared them. And now they wanted humans to protect their bobbies. Jack read the mission details again. He still could not believe what he was seeing. The government had sent an official request to the Coalition. They wanted human soldiers to guard their nursery world, not robots, not their own warriors, humans specifically. Lieutenant Amy walked up and stood beside Jack. She was a young officer with dark hair and sharp eyes. She had also read the mission file, and her face showed the same confusion that Jack felt. "Permission to speak freely, Commander," she asked. "Go ahead, Amy." "This does not make sense to me. They are the most dangerous species anyone has ever seen. They have armies. They have weapons that can destroy cities. Why would they need us to protect their children? We are nothing compared to them." Jack let out a long breath. "I asked the same question to the Coalition ambassador. He said they did not want anyone else. They asked for humans by name. They refused every other species." "But why?" "I do not know. I hope we will find out soon." The ship continued its journey toward the planet. As they got closer, they could see more details on the surface. There were forests that stretched for thousands of miles. There were rivers that sparkled in the sunlight. There were mountains with snow on their peaks. It was a beautiful world, chosen carefully to be a safe place for raising young. The shuttle bay opened, and Jack led his team of 37 soldiers onto the smaller transport ship. They strapped themselves into their seats and waited as the shuttle dropped away from the Meridian and began its descent through the atmosphere. The landing was smooth. The shuttle doors opened and warm air flowed inside. It smelled like flowers and grass and something else that Jack could not identify, something wild. Standing outside the shuttle was a welcoming party. At the front was even larger than the ones in the pictures. She was clearly very old, and her scales had faded to a dark gray color, but her yellow eyes were bright and full of power. This was Matriarch, the elder responsible for the entire nursery complex. Behind her stood other, smaller but still huge compared to the humans. Some of them carried bundles wrapped in thick cloth that kept warmth inside. The bundles moved slightly, and soft chirping sounds came from within them. Jack realized he was looking at bobbies. Hatchlings, they were called. He stepped forward and stood before Matriarch. He had to look up to meet her eyes. Way up. He felt like a child standing before a giant. "Matriarch," he said, keeping his voice steady and respectful. "I am Commander Jack Torres. These are my soldiers. We are here to serve as you requested." The Matriarch studied him for a long moment. Her yellow eyes moved over his face, his body, his weapons, his team. Jack felt like he was being examined by a predator deciding if he was worth eating. It was not a comfortable feeling. Then she spoke. Her voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. The small device in Jack's ear translated her words into human language. "You are the human protectors," she said. "We have waited many days for your arrival. Your reputation is known to us. Come, we will show you what you must defend." She turned and began walking toward the nursery complex. Jack and his team followed her. As they walked, more appeared from buildings and paths to watch them pass. All of them stared at the humans with great interest. Sergeant Ben walked beside Jack. Ben was a big man with a kind face, one of the best soldiers Jack had ever served with. Even Ben looked small next to the "Commander," Ben said quietly, "I count about 200 adults just in this area. Any one of them could kill all of us without breaking a sweat. Why do they need us?" "I have been asking myself the same thing," Jack admitted. Lieutenant Amy was on Jack's other side. "Maybe this is a trap. Maybe they plan to study us or use us for something." "The coalition checked everything," Jack said. "The request was real. They have been planning this for years. They really do want us here to protect their young." They reached the main building of the nursery complex. It was large and round, built from white stone that glowed softly in the sunlight. Through the windows they could see movement inside. More hatchlings, hundreds of them. Matriarch stopped at the entrance and turned to face the humans again. "You have questions," she said. It was not a question itself. She could see the confusion on their faces. "You wonder why we chose your species. You think we are foolish to trust creatures so small and weak with our most precious treasures." Jack did not know how to respond to that. It was exactly what he had been thinking. The matriarch made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You will understand soon enough. For now, rest, eat, learn this place. Tomorrow we will talk and I will tell you why humans are here." She walked away, leaving the humans standing at the entrance to the nursery. Jack looked at his team. They were all tired from the journey and they were all confused, but they were soldiers. They would do their job, whatever it turned out to be. "You heard the matriarch," Jack said. "Find your quarters, get some rest. Tomorrow we start learning what this mission is really about." As his team moved to follow the guides to their living spaces, Jack took one more look at the nursery building. Through the windows, he could see small hatchlings playing together. They looked almost cute, in a strange alien way. Hard to believe they would grow up to become the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. And now their safety was in human hands. Jack walked inside, still not understanding why. The next morning came with warm sunlight and the sound of chirping from the nursery buildings. Jack woke up early and put on his uniform. He had not slept well. Too many questions had been running through his mind all night. The human quarters were comfortable. They had clearly prepared for their arrival. The beds were the right size for humans, not for 8-foot-tall predators. The food in the dining area was human food, brought from coalition supply ships. Everything had been arranged to make the humans feel at home. This level of preparation told Jack something important. They had been planning this for a long time. They really did want humans here, but the question of why still had no answer. After breakfast, Jack gathered his senior officers for a walk around the nursery complex. They needed to understand what they were protecting. The complex was huge. It spread across 50 square kilometers of forests, meadows, and carefully maintained gardens. There were heated buildings where thousands of eggs lay in special chambers, kept at exactly the right temperature. There were play areas where older hatchlings ran and jumped and practiced hunting small robot animals. There were schools where young learned their history and language. Sergeant Ben walked beside Jack, taking notes on everything they saw. "This is like a whole city just for children," Ben said. "There must be several thousand hatchlings here." 4,712, said a voice behind them. They turned to find Matriarch approaching. She moved quietly for such a large creature. Her yellow eyes watched them with that same studying look from yesterday. 4,712 young ones, she repeated. The future of our species. and now they are under your protection." Corporal was part of their group. She was a small woman with a friendly smile that seemed to work on every species she met. Even now, several young were following her at a distance, curious about this strange, soft creature. Matriarch said, "May I ask a question?" Nodded her massive head. "Your warriors could protect this place much better than we can. You have weapons we cannot even understand. Your soldiers are stronger and faster than any human. Why do you need us?" The matriarch was silent for a moment. Then she lowered herself down, bending her legs until her eyes were closer to human level. This was a gesture of importance, Jack had learned. It meant she was going to share something significant. "Tell me, humans," she said, "what happens to your species when one of your young is in danger?" Ben answered first, "We protect them, we fight for them." "Yes, but what happens inside you, inside your minds and bodies?" Jack thought about it carefully. He remembered times when he had seen human parents protecting their children. He remembered the look in their eyes. "We get scared," he said, "and angry, very angry." "Your fear becomes madness," said. There was something like respect in her voice. "We have studied your species for many years. We have watched your history. We have observed your behavior in countless situations, and we found something that no other species in the galaxy possesses." She paused, making sure all the humans were listening. When a human child is threatened, the adults nearby change. They transform into something else entirely. Your bodies release chemicals that push you beyond normal limits. Your mind stops thinking about your own survival. You become focused on one single purpose, destroying the threat to the child. Amy spoke up. "That sounds like basic protective instinct. Many species have that." "No," said firmly. "Not like humans. Other species will protect their young until the danger becomes too great. Then they will run. They will hide. They will sacrifice some children to save others. They make logical choices." Her yellow eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Humans do not make logical choices when children are in danger. You fight until you win or until you are dead. There is no retreat. There is no surrender. There is no calculation of odds. A single human parent will attack an enemy 10 times their size if that enemy threatens their child. And they will not stop. Ever." The humans were silent, taking in her words. "We have seen recordings," continued. "Human soldiers throwing themselves onto explosives to protect children they have never met. Human civilians attacking armed attackers with their bare hands. Human rescue workers entering burning buildings again and again until they collapse from the smoke. None of these behaviors make logical sense, and yet humans do them anyway." Had moved closer to the young who were following her. One of them, a small gray creature about the size of a large dog, had pressed itself against her leg. She was gently touching its scales. "We are apex predators," said. "We have never found a species we could not hunt. We have never found an enemy we could not defeat. But when we studied humans, we found something new. We found a species that becomes more dangerous when it should become less dangerous. A species that ignores pain, ignores exhaustion, ignores certain death, all because a child is at risk." She stood back up to her full height. "The galaxy is not safe. There are threats that even we cannot predict. There are enemies that might come for our young when our warriors are far away. When that happens, we do not want guards who will calculate their chances and retreat when the odds are bad. We want guards who will lose their minds with protective rage. We want guards who will fight impossibly and die willingly and never, ever stop." She looked at each human in turn. "We want humans." Jack felt a strange mix of pride and unease. Pride because the most feared species in the galaxy respected something about humanity. Unease because he was not sure he could live up to that respect. "Matriarch," he said, "I understand what you are saying, but these are not human children. They are hatchlings. How do you know we will fight for them the same way we would fight for our own?" Made that rough laughing sound again. We do not know for certain, but we have observed something else about humans. You form attachments quickly and strongly. You will play with our hatchlings. You will feed them. You will teach them games and songs. Within a few weeks, you will love them." She began walking toward the nursery building, gesturing for the humans to follow. "And when you love them," she said over her shoulder, "you will protect them with the same madness you would show for your own children. This is the human way. You cannot help it. It is built into your very nature." Looked down at the young still pressing against her leg. It made a soft purring sound and looked up at her with large golden eyes. She smiled and gently scratched behind what might have been its ears. Maybe the matriarch was right, Jack thought. Maybe forming attachments was just what humans did. Over the next few weeks, he would find out just how right she was. The humans spread out across the nursery complex, taking up their protective duties. They patrolled the borders. They checked the security systems. They watched the skis for any sign of danger. But they also played with the hatchlings. They told them stories about Earth. They taught them human games like hide and seek. They let the small creatures climb on them and explore their strange, smooth skin. Ben, the big tough sergeant, was soon surrounded by a group of young every time he walked through the complex. They called him by a word that roughly translated to warm mountain. Became the favorite of the smallest hatchlings. They would crowd around her at meal times, and she would sneak them extra treats when the caretakers were not looking. Even Jack found himself growing attached to the young aliens. One hatchling in particular, a bright-eyed creature named, followed him everywhere and tried to copy everything he did. 3 months passed. The humans had become part of the nursery. They were accepted, trusted, loved. And then the warning came. It was a normal afternoon on Prime. The sun was warm, the sky was clear, and Lieutenant Amy was teaching a group of young how to play a human game called tag. The hatchlings were fast learners, though their 4 arms gave them an unfair advantage when it came to tagging others. Amy laughed as one of the smaller hatchlings managed to tap her shoulder and run away before she could react. "You are getting too good at this," she told them. "Soon, I will not be able to catch any of you." The hatchlings made happy chirping sounds. They had learned that human laughter meant joy, and they tried to make their human friends laugh as often as possible. Then the emergency sirens began to scream. The sound cut through the peaceful afternoon like a knife. It was loud and sharp, designed to be heard across the entire complex. Every human knew what it meant. Every knew what it meant. Danger was coming. Amy immediately shifted into combat mode. "All hatchlings, follow me to the shelter entrance. Stay close. Do not run ahead." The young obeyed without question. They had practiced this drill many times, but they had never heard the siren sound for real before. Their golden eyes were wide with fear. Across the complex, similar scenes were happening everywhere. Human soldiers gathered groups of hatchlings and guided them toward the underground shelters. Caretakers helped move the youngest ones, the ones too small to walk on their own. Jack was in the command center when Communications Officer Murphy gave him the report. Was a calm woman who never lost her cool, but even she looked worried now. "Commander, we have multiple ships entering the system. Count is 12, big ones." Jack moved to the main display screen. It showed a map of space around the planet. 12 red dots were moving toward them from the outer edge of the system. "Can you identify them?" Worked her controls for a moment, then her face went pale. Configuration matches Harvester-class raiders. Jack felt his stomach drop. The Harvesters were one of the worst threats in the galaxy. They were not a single species, but a collection of many species that had joined together for one purpose, taking what they wanted from others. They raided planets for resources, for technology, and for living beings. Especially young living beings. Young creatures were valuable in many dark markets across the galaxy. They could be sold as slaves. They could be used for experiments. They could be turned into soldiers through brutal training. The harvesters did not care about any laws or ethics. They only cared about profit. And now 12 harvester ships were heading toward a planet full of thousands of hatchlings. Matriarch entered the command center. She had already heard the news. Her yellow eyes were hard and cold, the eyes of a predator facing a threat to her family. "Our defensive fleet?" she asked. "4 days away," Jack said. "They are returning as fast as they can, but they will not arrive in time." "The planetary shields?" Checked her readings. "The shields can hold against orbital bombardment for approximately 6 hours, maybe 7 if we are lucky." "That is not enough time," said. Her voice was steady, but Jack could hear the fear beneath it. Not fear for herself. Fear for the thousands of young ones in her care. Jack looked at the tactical display again. 12 ships, hundreds of enemy soldiers on each ship. His team had 37 humans. The math was impossible. "We need to get all the hatchlings into the deep shelters," he said. "How long can those hold?" Shook her head slowly. The deep shelters were built to protect against natural disasters like earthquakes and storms. Against orbital strikes and military assault, they might last 2 or 3 hours more than the shields. Jack did the calculation in his head. 6 hours of shields plus 3 hours of shelter protection. 9 hours total. The fleet would not arrive for 4 days. That was over 90 hours. There was no way to survive that long. "Commander," it was Matriarch speaking quietly so only he could hear. "This is the moment we feared. This is why we requested your people." Jack looked at her. "You knew this might happen." "We knew it was possible. The harvesters have tried to raid our worlds before, but our fleets always stopped them. This time, our ships are far away, responding to another crisis. Someone told the harvesters when to attack. Someone who knew our fleet would not be here. A traitor somewhere, but that was a problem for later. Right now, Jack had to focus on survival." He opened a communication channel to all of his soldiers. "All personnel, this is Commander Tor's, battle stations. We are implementing Defense Protocol 7. Report your status." One by one, 36 voices responded. Every human on the planet acknowledged the order. Every human understood what Defense Protocol 7 meant. It meant they were preparing to fight to the death. Jack looked around the command center at his officers. Amy, Ben, Murphy, good people, brave people, people who had become like family to him over the past 3 months. "We cannot win this fight," he said honestly. "The enemy outnumbers us by a huge margin. When those ships break through the shields, they will send hundreds of soldiers to take the hatchlings." No one spoke. They all knew he was right. "But we can buy time," Jack continued. "Every minute we hold them off is another minute for the fleet to get closer. Every enemy we stop is one less threat to the children. We might not survive this day, but if we fight hard enough, long enough, maybe the fleet will arrive before the shelters fall." Ben stepped forward. He was a big man, but his voice was soft. "Commander, I have been playing games with those hatchlings for 3 months. Little calls me Warm Mountain and brings me flowers every morning. I am not leaving them." Nodded. "The smallest ones sleep in my quarters because they feel safe near me. I will not let anyone take them." Amy checked her weapon. "I did not come halfway across the galaxy to run away from a fight." One by one, every human in the command center made their commitment. They would stay. They would fight. They would protect the hatchlings with everything they had. Matriarch watched them with her golden eyes. If she could cry, Jack thought she might have. Instead, she spoke in a voice thick with emotion. "The people will never forget what you are about to do. Your names will be remembered. Your courage will be told in stories for 1,000 generations." Jack nodded. "Let us make sure those stories have a good ending. Everyone get to your positions. We have work to do." The humans scattered to their assigned defensive posts. Outside, the sky was still blue and peaceful, but that would not last long. High above the planet, the harvester fleet continued its approach. In a few hours, they would reach the shields. In a few hours, the battle would begin. Jack looked out the window at the nursery buildings. He could see hatchlings being guided to the shelters, their small forms moving quickly across the grass. He could see human soldiers taking up positions at every entrance, every pathway, every possible route that enemies might use. 37 humans against an army. It should have been impossible. It should have been hopeless. But as Jack watched his people prepare for battle, he felt something strange. Not despair, not fear, something else. Something that burned in his chest like fire. He thought about Little, who followed him everywhere. He thought about the baby hatchlings who slept in his room. He thought about all the young lives in this place, all the futures that the harvesters wanted to steal. And he understood what matriarch had meant. He understood why they had chosen humans. Because right now, Jack Torres did not care about the odds. He did not care about survival. He did not care about anything except stopping anyone who tried to hurt those children. He was ready to become the thing they had predicted. He was ready to go mad with protective fury. The planetary shields held for 7 hours and 23 minutes. During that time, the humans had moved every single hatchling into the deep underground shelters. The caretakers stayed with the young ones, keeping them calm and quiet in the darkness below. Above ground, 37 humans waited for war. When the shields finally failed, the sky lit up with fire. Harvester dropships came down like burning meteors, crashing through the atmosphere and landing in fields and clearings around the nursery complex. Doors opened, and enemy soldiers poured out. Jack watched from the command center as the tactical display filled with red dots. Each dot was an enemy. There were so many dots that they almost filled the screen. First wave count is approximately 500 soldiers, reported. Her voice was calm, professional, hiding the fear she must have felt. More dropships incoming. All units hold your fire until my command, Jack said into his communicator. Let them come to us. Make every shot count. Sergeant Ben was stationed at the main entrance to the shelter complex. He had 12 humans with him, crouched behind barriers they had built from furniture and equipment. The entrance was the most important point. If the enemy broke through here, they would have direct access to the tunnels leading down to the hatchlings. Was at his side, her weapon ready. Her hands were steady, but Ben could see the fire in her eyes. This was not the friendly woman who played games with hatchlings. This was something else. They are getting closer, said quietly. I can see them. Ben looked through his weapon's scope. The harvesters were a mixed group. Some were tall and thin with gray skin. Others were short and muscular with too many arms. Some walked on 4 legs like animals. All of them carried weapons and moved with the confidence of experienced raiders. They expected easy prey. They expected guards who would run or surrender when they saw how many enemies they faced. They did not know who they were fighting. They have reached the first marker, someone said over the communicator. Jack's voice came back immediately. All units open fire. The nursery complex exploded with the sound of weapons. From every window, every doorway, every hidden position, humans began shooting. The first wave of harvesters, caught in the open with no cover, fell by the dozens. But there were too many of them. For every enemy that fell, 10 more took their place. They began to spread out, finding cover behind buildings and trees. They returned fire, and the air filled with the deadly light of energy weapons. At the main entrance, Ben's team held their ground. 3 humans were hit in the first exchange, but the others kept fighting. They could not afford to stop. Behind them, the tunnel entrance led directly to 4,000 hatchlings. Reloading, called out. She dropped behind the barrier to change her weapon's power cell. A harvester soldier saw the movement and charged forward, thinking he had found a weak point. Ben stepped into his path. What happened next was not something anyone had trained Ben to do. His body moved on its own, guided by instincts older than civilization. He blocked the enemy's weapon with one arm, feeling the bone crack from the impact. With his other hand, he pulled his combat knife and drove it into the soft spot under the creature's chin. The harvester fell. Ben picked up the enemy's weapon with his broken arm, ignoring the pain that should have made him scream, and kept fighting. Across the complex, similar scenes were happening everywhere. Lieutenant Amy led a counterattack on the eastern side. The harvesters had broken through a wall and were advancing toward a secondary tunnel entrance. Amy's team was only 5 humans against almost 100 enemies. They attacked anyway. Amy took a plasma burn to her left arm in the first seconds of the fight. The wound was severe, the kind that should have sent her to the ground in shock. Instead, she switched her weapon to her right hand and kept firing. She led her team forward, pushing the enemy back meter by meter. "For the children," she heard herself shouting. "For the children." Her team took up the cry. 5 humans, wounded and screaming their defiance as they drove back a force 20 times their size. The harvesters began to retreat, confused by enemies who should have been easy to kill but refused to fall. In the command center, Jack coordinated the defense while also fighting off enemies who reached the building. Murphy had taken a position at the window, picking off harvester officers with precise shots. Her calmness was gone now, replaced by cold focus. The harvesters kept coming, wave after wave, hour after hour. The humans took casualties, but they did not break. Every time an enemy got close to a shelter entrance, humans appeared to stop them. Every time a position fell, the defenders retreated to the next one and kept fighting. On the lead harvester ship orbiting above the planet, Fleet Commander was watching the battle with growing confusion. His tactical officers kept giving him reports that made no sense. "We have lost 60% of our ground forces," one officer said. "The humans are taking casualties, but they will not surrender." "They are only 37 individuals," said. "How can 37 creatures cause this much damage?" "They fight without reason, Commander. Our soldiers report that the humans ignore wounds that should be fatal. They attack when they should retreat. They die protecting positions that have no strategic value." The officer paused, looking at his data. "They are protecting the shelter entrances. They seem to believe they can hold us off forever." Studied the display showing the battlefield below. His army was being torn apart by a handful of soft, fragile humans who should have been easy to crush. "What is wrong with them?" he asked. Another officer pulled up biological readings from the battlefield. "Their bodies are showing extreme stress hormones. Their hearts are beating at dangerous levels. Their brains are operating in patterns we have never seen before. It is similar to induced madness, but it appears to be natural. They have gone insane." "In a sense, yes, but their insanity is focused, directed. They have become single-minded killing machines with one purpose: stopping anyone who tries to reach the young ones in those shelters." Was an experienced raider. He had attacked hundreds of worlds. He had faced defenders of many species. He had never seen anything like this. "Pull back the ground forces," he ordered finally. "We will bombard the complex from orbit, destroy the shelters directly." "Commander, that will kill the hatchlings. They are worth nothing dead." "They are worth nothing if we cannot reach them. The humans will not let us take them alive. Better to destroy everything than to lose more soldiers to this madness." Back on the surface, Jack received a warning from the sensors. The harvester ships were powering up their main weapons. They were preparing to fire on the planet directly. He looked at the tactical display. His team had been fighting for 8 hours straight. Half of his people were wounded. 6 were dead. They had held the enemy back against impossible odds, but it was not enough. The ships above would destroy everything in minutes. Jack opened a channel to all his surviving soldiers. His voice was tired but calm. "All units, this is Tors. Enemy ships are preparing orbital bombardment. Estimated impact in 15 minutes. We have done everything we could." He paused, looking out at the burning complex, at his wounded soldiers still fighting at their posts. "I am proud of every single one of you. The hatchlings are alive because of you. Whatever happens next, remember that." Then in the distance the sky lit up with new fire. But this fire was different. It was not falling toward the planet. It was hitting the harvester ships. His voice came over the communicator, filled with disbelief. "Commander, Coalition vessels, multiple contacts, the fleet, they are here. The fleet is here." Jack looked up at the sky. Through the smoke and clouds, he could see bright flashes as Coalition warships engaged the harvesters. The reinforcements had arrived. They had survived. On the ground, humans who should have been too tired and wounded to move began to cheer. They had held the line. They had protected the children. They had won. The battle above the planet lasted only 2 more hours. The Coalition fleet, led by warships that had pushed their engines beyond safe limits to arrive early, made quick work of the Harvester raiders. 9 of the 12 enemy ships were destroyed. 3 managed to escape into deep space, carrying stories that would spread across the galaxy. Stories about a planet full of children. Stories about the small, weak creatures who had defended them. Stories about humans. On the surface of Prime, medical teams worked through the night to treat the wounded. The nursery complex was badly damaged, with several buildings destroyed completely. But the shelters had held. The hatchlings were safe. All 4,712 of them. Of the 37 humans who had fought to defend them, 31 survived. 6 had given their lives protecting children that were not their own, children of a species that had once been humanity's enemy. Their bodies were carried with honor to a special place that had built for fallen warriors. Jack woke up in the medical bay 2 days after the battle. His ribs were cracked in 3 places. His left leg had taken a bad wound that would need months to heal fully. His body ached in ways he had never experienced before. But he was alive. He turned his head and saw Sergeant Ben in the bed next to him. Ben's arm was wrapped in a healing cast that would repair the broken bone over the next few weeks. Despite his injuries, Ben was smiling. "Good morning, Commander," Ben said. "How do you feel?" "Like I got stepped on by Jack admitted. "Same," Ben laughed, then winced because laughing hurt his cracked ribs. Lieutenant Amy was in a bed across the room. Her left arm was heavily bandaged, but the doctors said she would keep it. She was talking quietly with, who had come through the battle with only minor wounds. Murphy sat in a chair near the door, reading reports on a data tablet. She had refused treatment for her own small injuries until everyone else had been cared for first. They had made it, not all of them but most of them, and the hatchlings were safe. The door to the medical bay opened and Matriarch walked in. She moved slowly, carefully, aware that her large body could easily bump into the medical equipment. Her yellow eyes swept across the room, looking at each wounded human in turn. She stopped at Jack's bed first. "Commander Tors," she said, her deep voice gentle, "you are awake. The doctors were not certain when you would recover consciousness." "I am hard to kill," Jack said with a small smile. "Yes, you are." She made that rough sound that might have been a laugh. "That is what we counted on." She moved to the center of the room where all the humans could see her. Even the ones in beds turned their heads to watch. "I have spoken with the coalition leaders," said. "I have told them what you did here, how you fought against impossible odds, how you refused to retreat even when retreat was the logical choice, how you bled and died to protect young that were not your own." She paused, her yellow eyes growing bright with emotion. "The coalition is calling you heroes. They want to give you medals and honors. They want to put your names in their history books." She shook her massive head slowly. "But the coalition does not truly understand what happened here. They think this was about duty, about orders, about being good soldiers. Her voice dropped lower. I know the truth. I watched you fight. I saw what you became when my hatchlings were threatened. You did not fight like soldiers following orders. You fought like parents protecting children. You felt our young ones in your hearts, and you would have burned the whole galaxy to keep them safe. She looked at Ben. I saw you break your arm and keep fighting. You did not even notice the pain. She looked at Amy. I saw you take a wound that should have stopped any creature, and you kept moving forward. You kept protecting. She looked at, I saw you carry 3 hatchlings to safety while enemies shot at you from every direction. You used your own body to shield them. She looked at Jack. I saw you coordinate a battle while bleeding from wounds you did not bother to treat. I saw you think only of the children, never of yourself. Performed a gesture that none of the humans had seen before. She lowered her head until it almost touched the floor. In culture, this was the deepest sign of respect possible, a predator bowing before creatures it could easily kill. My people will remember this day, she said from her lowered position. We will tell our hatchlings what you did. They will tell their hatchlings. The story will be passed down for 1,000 generations until the stars themselves grow cold and die. She raised her head and looked at each human again. Before this day, we knew that humans were strong in ways that other species are not. We knew that you become dangerous when children are threatened, but we did not truly believe it. Some of my people called me foolish for trusting our young to creatures so small and fragile. Her voice grew stronger. Now they believe. Now the whole galaxy believes. 3 surviving harvester ships escaped this system, and they will tell everyone what they saw here. They will warn other raiders never to attack a place protected by humans. They will spread fear of your species across 100 star systems. She made a sound of satisfaction. The universe is vast and dangerous. There are many threats to young ones everywhere. But now there is one species that all threats must fear. One species that will never stop, never retreat, never surrender when children are in danger. She looked directly at Jack. Humans. Jack did not know what to say. He felt tears forming in his eyes, which surprised him. He had not cried in many years. Matriarch, he finally managed. We were just doing what felt right. We did not think about being heroes. We just could not let anyone hurt the little ones. I know, said softly. That is what makes you truly special. You did not have to think about it. You did not have to choose. Protecting children is simply what humans do. It is built into your very nature. She straightened to her full height. The government has made a decision. From this day forward, every nursery world in our territory will have human guardians. We will request the best of your species to protect our young, and we will never forget why. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Rest now, human protectors. Heal your wounds. When you are ready, the hatchlings wish to see you. They have been asking about their friends every hour since the battle ended. She smiled, a strange expression on her predator face. Little refuses to eat until he can give Commander Tors a flower. Please recover quickly. He is a stubborn hatchling. After she left, the medical bay was quiet for a long moment. Then Ben started to laugh, ignoring the pain in his ribs. We crossed the galaxy to protect alien monster bobbies, he said, and now we are famous for it. I told you those hatchlings were cute, said with a grin. Amy shook her head, but she was smiling too. When I joined the coalition forces, I never imagined this would be my career. Professional babysitter for the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Best job I ever had, said quietly from her chair. Jack closed his eyes and let himself rest. His body was broken, but his heart was full. They had done something good here, something that mattered. Somewhere in the shelters below, 4,712 hatchlings were safe and alive, because 37 humans had refused to let them be taken. 6 of those humans had paid the ultimate price. Their sacrifice would never be forgotten. And across the galaxy, the story was spreading. The story of why even apex predators trust humans to guard their young. Because when you threaten human children, or the children humans have chosen to protect, something changes in them. Something ancient and powerful wakes up. Something that does not know the meaning of surrender. Today, the galaxy had learned that lesson. Tomorrow, they would never forget it.